right now, we turn to our usual Monday guest to make heads or tails about everything that we just saw in the National Football League over the weekend. The host of the Green Light Pod, as well as one of the many terrific voices you hear on Inside the NFL on the CW, our friend Chris Long back here. How are you doing, Christopher?
Rich, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great. Are the Eagles the most confounding or improperly criticized 4-0 team that you've seen in a while? Chris, what do you got for me?
I don't know. I'm so biased because I have my, I'm really honed in on this team. So I kind of have an understanding of who I think they are. And I think some people probably hold them to a standard that's a little bit unrealistic early in the season with two new coordinators. But Sam Howell and Washington come out of a game where the Bills, that Bills flu is going around, as you know. I wouldn't judge teams too much off of how they look against the Bills. But the Eagles, while they didn't put up gaudy sack numbers, I thought the D-line at different points in the game, which remains the identity of this team, the guys up front, imposed their will, gave great effort in big situations, whether it's Josh Sweat, a sack in the red zone, keeping, 7 points off the board, or, Jalen Carter's effort, man, it's contagious the way he's just scratching and clawing on 3rd and 18, on 4th and 2, Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick. And then up front, like the being able to run the football, having that high floor, the shots that you can take in the vertical passing game, which were big for them yesterday. I thought they needed a gut check. They got it. And it's a division game and a team that beat them last year. You have to remember that. I think Howell might be an upgrade over Heineke. Like sometimes he looks like Brett Favre out there in a good way, like a young chicken eating Brett Favre, because all he eats is chicken. But like, I thought Eric Bieniemy and him did a great job yesterday. I would have gone for 2, tried to win in regulation. But the bottom line is they've been beat by this team in the last calendar year in primetime. And so it's never going to be easy. And they pulled that thing out.
So then what is it then? Because A.J. Brown got his, and DeAndre Swift is getting his, and the offensive line is as good as it appears as ever. Is it Hurts just not looking comfortable or playing consistently? Like, so what is off to you about the Eagles despite winning every game that they've had?
Well, I think it's, like I'm on the set inside the NFL with, we've talked about this on this show. Like I get to be around some really smart players that played different positions than me, and talking to Ocho and Jay Cutler and those guys, like, the first month of the season in the passing game, especially, I don't think, the Bengals are going to turn around in a week and be better. I do think there's a lot of teams that are working through it. And, the passing game is one thing that's infinitely complicated, and there's a lot of different variables. And when you replace a coordinator, in Shane Spikeman, as Gronk calls him, I think he's as good a head coaching hire as we had this year. And you lose that guy, it's not insignificant. I don't care how well Jalen Hurts gets along with the coordinator. It's kind of like his buddy, his position coach. But it takes time. And so I'm not panicking about because the personnel's there. I still think the top end throws, Jalen's got those. The offensive line is dominant. And you've got a number one and another number one in Devontae Smith, who made 2 of the biggest catches in the game. After that, kind of inexplicable, but I get what they're doing. That shot they took to A.J. Brown where he kind of stopped on the route, there was a miscommunication. It was interesting. They check because the Commanders come down and show blitz, and then he's trying to get the check to A.J. Commanders stay in it. Jack Del Rio's just trying to heat him up. They get the grounding play. They needed a big reception to ensure that Jake would be in field goal range. Smitty again. So I think, if anything, I'd love to see the tight end get used a little bit more. And I love to see them getting on the same page. But when you have a front like that and a defensive front like that, I worry more about the defensive secondary than I do, the passing game offensively. And you saw that early in the game. Washington comes out, they're throwing the ball. Like, they're taking their chances with this rush. And Sam's hanging back there, time to throw is 3 seconds. So, a lot of pressures, but they were confident enough to take chances. And I think that speaks to, the state of the Eagles secondary right now. Job's playing a lot of snaps out there and getting picked on a little bit. I would look to shore that up. I think the offensive stuff's going to work itself out.
Chris Long right here on the Rich Eisen Show in his usual Monday spot. Who's the MVP of the San Francisco 49ers? You can only choose one, Chris. It's Sports Talk Radio. What do you got for me?
Damn, that's good. That's good, Rich.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, man. It could be Fred Warner.
Okay.
If you want me to say somebody outside the box, I always think the quarterback's the most valuable player. And I think Brock Purdy falling into their laps, I mean, like, you can't get much more value than that, especially like accidentally, to count on this kid to play a bunch of snaps. But, you look at like what the Bills did yesterday. I think in today's NFL, you look at the future of the NFL, like Miami, all this motion, all this chaos in the middle of the field, people having trouble passing routes, linebackers in peril against a team like the Dolphins. Those are the kind of teams you have to beat. And to have a Fred Warner who can run the seam with anybody, who's athletic, who's got good coverage instincts. I mean, you could argue Nick Bosa, but I think Fred Warner is like that cheat code. Other teams have elite rushers. Not many teams have a Matt Milano or a Fred Warner. So if I was going to pick a non-quarterback, I might go Fred Warner.
Over McCaffrey, huh? The guy's by the 18 touchdowns in his first 18 games with the Niners. How's that shooting you? I mean,
it's treating the Niners good. It's just they got to be careful with the usage. I mean, early in the season, I think he got 20-something touches yesterday with his history. McCaffrey, obviously right up there, but it speaks to how great this team is when you can't pick out who the most valuable player is. I mean, if I were to even reframe it outside the quarterback, we'd have a lot of trouble.
I've got my friend Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Steelers. Did you hear Mike Tomlin after the game in Houston? Chris Long, did you hear about that one?
What did he say exactly? Because I feel for him because usually the floor is so high with this team.
Well, here he is after the game when talking about, because again, Pickett, it does appear like he's going to miss some time.
Yeah,
it's Trubisky there now, but you also know it's as we've been saying here, it's kind of like South Park, blame Canada. Is what's happening right now in Pittsburgh. And so Tomlin was asked afterwards if there is some changes coming after getting smoked by the Texans.
Hell yeah, we got to make some changes, man. That was an ugly product we put out there today, and so we're not going to do the same things and hope for a different outcome. What those changes are, man, we'll put together a plan in preparation this week.
Obviously, Steeler fans are wondering if that means a change. What's your interpretation? What do you think?
I would hope it means a change eventually, but he also leaves himself a lot of latitude. Like, we're going to change scheme, we're going to change, people up front. We're going to give people less targets. I think he gives himself an out, but I mean, I hate sounding like I'm calling for people to get fired.
Of course.
Because it's a business and it's harsh and the whole thing. And he's not trying to fall short, but the scheme it's tough. I mean, like, they're not dynamic, right? Not dynamic at quarterback, although I've liked Kenny Pickett and he's kind of regressed. If Mitch is in there, they're not dynamic, but what they have to be is they have to be sound. And the passing concepts for that team are unsound. I mean, like, you play teams that are running zone, their spacing is terrible. They get two guys out in the routes with a bunch of dudes back there in coverage. We talked about it earlier in the season, extended downs, not being able to find voids in zones. It's like, what are they being coached to do in the passing game? And because of that, the run game isn't really a factor either. And how long can we watch this same movie? Now, I do think Trubisky, the drop off is not significant to where you're like, hey, whatever our aspirations were, we can't do it. I think this team has to play really good complementary football, and they're not doing that. And the offense is hanging the defense out to dry.
But in terms of, I guess, teams in that division that are most concerning, I mean, if you think about it, going into the season, when you saw Cincinnati at Arizona week 5, you're like, well, that's a dub for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And the way Arizona's been balling out, the Cardinals have definitely performed much better than anybody gave them with Jonathan Gannon, with the pew pew and all that
Good
sort
for
of stuff.
them. Yeah, good for John.
Credit,
yeah.
No doubt about it. So now here comes Cincinnati. And did you hear what Jamar Chase had to say this past week?
He said he's open. I don't doubt it. And I here's the thing. I don't see Jamar Chase as like a make a stink guy, especially about his guy, Joe Burrow. I don't think he's necessarily saying that. I don't know if he's frustrated and, he's snapping at a reporter that, maybe asked him some sideways questions in the past, like, don't worry about me. Like, I'm not to blame here. But I think everybody understands that Joe is not healthy. And what's wild to me is that you just pay this guy more than anybody in the league. And, you're getting beat by a team you've owned lately that's been trying to get rid of their quarterback for 2 years. And Joe's not healthy. You can see it. They limit themselves with as much gun as they're in, for sure. But teams are just like, we're going to make you earn it. And you can't run the ball well enough. Like Tennessee was creeping down in some heavy boxes, got that run game under control. I just don't think Joe looks right. And I think, we talked about this early in his career. I hope when I'm talking to my 7-year-old son in 20 years about Joe Burrow, it's not like, you should have seen it his first couple of years. I mean, the guy was in the Super Bowl. It's just they mismanaged him. And it feels like an Andrew Luck thing. His name's been brought up in the past with the way they've mismanaged this deal, and you think they're over the hump, but I don't know. Taylor's he's gotta pick it up. I mean, this is as hopeless as I've seen them look. And you say, hey, physical game Monday, short week. This is Cincinnati the first 4 weeks of the season. And I said what I said about passing games, rounding into form over a month. This feels different. It does. And the defense losing 2 safeties, losing really key pieces of that defense. They loaded the box. They couldn't compete with Derrick Henry. I thought the thing they hung their hat on last year, late in the season, was they turned into a physical outfit. And I don't feel like they have that same team or vibe about them. I don't know if it's they miss P. Ryan in certain situations. They miss players that they let walk. But the balance has been thrown off, and Joe's hurt. He can't move.
And to me, that may be the source of Jamar Chase's frustration, Chris, because that's what he's been saying for the last several weeks, is telling Joe, sit. Like, we should sit him until he is 100% ready. And now he looks like a shadow of his former self. And, RG3 came on the show last week or right around then, and he mentioned Andrew Luck too. That's, you and RG3 have now said the same thing about him. And that may be the concern. But unfortunately, that horse is officially out of the barn. And and they were turning down contact, it looked like, on Derrick Henry. And I'm the last person to be critical about that, because I wouldn't want to stand in his way either. And then just a weird timeout when he showed up in shotgun formation on the goal line, and you'd think they'd have a defense ready or you'd think that the Titans would go with a different formation. They're not going to put him back after the timeout because they'd be ready for the play. Then he threw a wide open touchdown pass anyway. It just was totally
I just
weird,
don't. I don't see the adjustments, Rich, to your point, and I also don't see the staples of this offense. The big throws outside the numbers, the quick game, which they got going early. If you watch the first 10 plays of this game, you're like, oh, they're back. But eventually, when you get in these 3rd and longs, because the run game's not great, you have a hard time blocking up Arden Key, Simmons, the whole crew. And Joe, the thing that made him great was that subtle movement in the pocket. It's not like he's the best athlete in the world, but it's that Brady, like you saw Trevor Lawrence on 4th and 6 yesterday, hit the touchdown to Ridley. Free runner, just it takes power through your hips and it takes mobility, and they work on this stuff, but it's that subtle movement. It's just that one thing to buy you an extra second or two to make the plays downfield. He doesn't have that. It's 3rd and 5. He doesn't feel like he can take off and pick up 6. He was a good enough athlete to do that a year ago.
And it's kind of crazy, Chris Long here on the Rich Eisen Show. Man, I could talk to you for the full hour, but we got a few minutes left with our Greenlight Pod host and our usual Monday guest coming off of the Jets taking on the Patriots. That now we're sitting here on this Monday morning saying, the Zach Wilson light is on. That's what we're looking for. And Mac Jones just looked like Zach Wilson against the Cowboys, and you're wondering where the hell are the Patriots going to go from here? It's like a total role reversal. I can't believe it right now. Chris, what do you
a few weeks ago, I'll eat it. I called the Patriots the best 0-2 team in football because I liked what their defense had to offer. I thought Mac looked better at times early in the season. I mean, surprise, surprise. He's got coaches that do this for a living now, calling plays. And, you think the Bama stuff's going to get. But here's the problem. If you play Dallas and you find yourself down a couple scores, you turn the ball over, you're not going to win. Okay. If you play Dallas, you become one-dimensional. You have to go away from the run game. You're not going to win. These are things that the Patriots especially are not immune to. I mean, they're not built to play from behind. So everything they have to do is going to have to be in phase. And to lose Judon yesterday, and I think Dietrich Wise after the game used words like devastating and we'll be with him all year. So that tells you it's probably not a good deal. It's a bicep thing. I don't know, but it doesn't sound good. And then, Gonzalez goes down. This is the furthest away that I've felt like the Pats have been, even post Brady. And I'm surprised by it. I really am, because I thought they'd be better this year.
And what'd you make of Zach Wilson's performance on Sunday night?
I'm happy. Chris? I'm happy for him. Like, listen, I don't think I could do what Zach Wilson's doing. And I don't mean throw the ball. I mean, deal with everything he's had to deal with. Now, you could say, I don't feel sorry for him. He's a high pick, that sort of thing. Like, gotcha. I've been there. Nobody's going to feel bad for you that all of a sudden your every move is under a microscope. But I do feel like he got a little win yesterday. Now, Jets fans don't want to hear about emotional victories or that sort of thing, or whatever you want to call it. But until that Zach Wilson mistake and the script is going to script, I thought he was very good. I thought at times he was very good. And when you look back at a couple of their other games, now, while he still makes these Zach Wilson plays, I had problems with some of the offensive concepts, and, some guys just weren't open. And, I thought the offensive line played better. It would have been so great to get to 500 and say, hey, we just beat the world champs. And, our offensive line improved, the pass game improved, the defense looked like the defense. We got punched in the mouth at home, responded. But Salah's got to pull that message out even in a loss, which is the hard thing. I mean, because, hey, one of those penalties doesn't go that way, which I thought it was a penalty. I mean, it's about the turning of the jersey, the torso. I can't complain even after the Eagles call in the Super Bowl, but Salah's got to pull that out. He's got to get back in the locker room and be like, guys, we are this close. Because this is the first week it doesn't feel like BS, right? Week one, it felt real, but you were like, I need to see a bigger. Yeah. But 2 and 3, you're like, Salah, stop. You don't believe what you're saying. Now you can at least go in and put it in brave face and be like, guys, we are 5 minutes away from beating the world champions. If we can just figure some things out, get into a rhythm, play complimentary football, maybe we're all right.
Who's on the pod this week? What do you got for me? Who are your guests?
Shoot, we have there's a YouTuber named Ninja, which I don't do twitching and all that video game stuff. Kyle's a big video. Yeah, he's a big deal.
He's a diehard Lions fan too.
Yeah, you know him.
Oh, I do. Oh, yeah. Look at me.
Yeah, so we got him.
Wait a minute. You went hold on a second. Chris, we have something called higher register here, where you go higher register. Really? Like, yeah.
I don't know him.
How about that?
I don't know him. I didn't take you as a YouTube guy. I mean, like, I didn't know. We got him. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I'm worldly, Chris. I'm worldly.
It's not an ageist thing, dude. It's not an ageist thing. I think
that's a me problem. That's an MP.
I count myself. I'm like a boomer, man. I don't, I don't know how to use technology. The whole thing. Somebody explained how to use my Apple Wallet at 7-Eleven. Some college kid the other night. Could have robbed me blind. Okay. Got robbed by a little old lady on a motorized cart. Got robbed by a Gen Zer. So, Rich, I don't know this stuff either, but we got Ryan Fitzpatrick as
Fantastic.
well.
Okay.
San Francisco.
Fantastic.
Were you out buying lottery tickets again, Chris?
No, it was the same gas station, which sadly they're shutting down after all these years. The 7-Eleven on Ivy Road. I want to shout that thing out, man. My boys, they've been working since I used to go in there in high school.
All right.
I mean, it's $1 billion again. It's fine to admit you're buying them.
Let's go. That's fine. We're all in.
Yeah, we're in. I'm
too.
in.
Yeah, numbers look good to me.
Well, that's Chris Long. Hey, man, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's great. See?
Yeah,
that doesn't sound so great the way I said it, does it, Chris?
Oh, you know Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. You probably sacked him. Okay, very good. Thanks for the Monday treatment as well as always, Chris.
Of
Thanks,
course,
brother.
dude.
All
Yeah,
right.
good to see you.
All right. Green Light with
See you,
Chris
buddy.
Long, podcast host. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.